As the original Crash Bandicoot was my first ever platformer, Crash Team Racing was my first ever racing game. And god, what an awesome game this is. People call this a Mario Kart ripoff for some reason, and I'm over here like, really? This is nothing like Mario Kart. Crash Team Racing looks better, plays better, and just overall is better, in my opinion. Of course, when I say Mario Kart, I mean the Mario Kart that was out at the time, which was Mario Kart 64, and it's okay at best. But when I think of high-octane 32-bit racing action, I think of Crash Team Racing. But enough about that. This is Crash's first ever spin-off, and it does have a story, so let's go over it. A racing-centric, self-centered alien named Nitrous Oxide decides to invade Earth and challenge the planet's fastest driver to a race. If they win, he'll leave with no questions asked. But if Oxide wins, say it with me, he'll turn our entire globe into a concrete parking lot and make us his slaves. Typical villain nonsense, I guess. Coming from a guy who wants to turn Earth into a giant parking lot, what use will that have? I think I'm reading too much into this. We then get a montage of all our favorite Crash characters gearing up and preparing to hit the tracks, as Crash just sleeps. And that's the whole plot. Race your butt off, defeat the villain, save the world. So it goes without saying, for the fourth time, that gameplay is the name of the game. This time literally. Racing. And big shock, the racing's awesome. Like the previous 3 games before it, this Crash installment takes full advantage of the genre it falls under and goes all out with it. You have multiple ways of boosting in this game, 2 of which are pretty typical in racing games, by launching off a ramp and hitting the pavement, or with the use of a power-up. But one really neat boosting method I haven't really seen done in another game, at least in this kind of way, is slide boosting. Sure, Mario Kart and other racing games do this now, the term now being called drifting, but Crash Team Racing is the first game I've seen do this, and it's implemented very well here. You have up to 3 consecutive boosts you can do once your gauge hits red every time, and you also don't want to slide too long or you'll spin out. So with good slide control, plenty of boosting, and precise speed strip hitting, you can tear through these tracks no problem. And the control in this game is really good. Speaking of tracks, the visuals and aesthetics once again are impressive. Lifted mainly from Crash 2 and 3, as well as implementing some entirely new stuff, players of the platforming games will feel right at home here with the visuals. With that said, the music in this game, a definite 2 thumbs up for me. Just listen to that intro.
Start your engine for Sony Computer Entertainment America production. Fasten your seatbelts for another Naughty Dog creation.
If that doesn't get you into the racing spirit, I don't know what will. It's energetic, it's exciting, it's catchy, it's familiar. That part's important. The essence of Crash is ever so present in the soundtrack, and seeing as Josh Mansell was back once more to compose the music, it's not surprising. Now let's look at the characters. Seeing as this is the very first multiplayer Crash game, you're going to want a healthy cast of characters to choose from. And there is. From heroes and villains alike, you've got a grand total of 15 characters to choose from, bosses included. Now that's something I found neat. The characters who serve as bosses in story mode can actually be unlocked for you to play as. All characters have their stats and quirks, so you can test out every character and get a feel for how they all control. There are virtually no new characters introduced in this game except for Oxide, who isn't playable besides using a Game Shark cheat. Penta Penguin, supposedly based off the penguin enemies from Crash 2, and he wasn't implemented right. I mean, listen to this.
Penguin Ye 1. Penguin Ye 2.
They didn't take those placeholders out, it's jarring as hell. Fake Crash makes his first wide-open appearance here, first being seen in Crash 3 as a joke character in certain levels after you've gotten 100%, and he's fine. To end the review off, let's take a brief look at the modes. So like I mentioned earlier with this being the first multiplayer Crash game, there are a lot of multiplayer modes, which you can also conveniently play by yourself, ranging from battle mode, to standard racing, to cup racing, to time attack, which is single player, also nice attention to detail, the ghost is entropy. And then of course we have the single player Marvel Adventure mode. This is where the plot kicks in. Your goal is to enter all the races, come in first place, and nab all the trophies. You also have to beat the bosses and win their boss keys. Getting all 4 will allow you to race Oxide himself. There are other collectibles too, such as CTR tokens, where you have to find and grab the letters C, T, and R and come in first place, and relics, which is a time trial mode. Yellow crates from Crash 3 and all. So what fate befalls Nitrous Oxide when you beat him? He goes back to his home planet Gas Moxia in shame, doomed to be a laughingstock. And that's Crash Team Racing. This game is really fun, and if anyone were to ask me to recommend them a good old school racing game, this would definitely be the first one I'd suggest. There are a lot of things to like about it, and for Naughty Dog's first Crash spin-off, it ain't bad. However, Naughty Dog's first Crash spin-off would be their last Crash game, so every other game we'll be taking a look at from here on out, they have nothing to do with. So join me next time as we review the first Crash game made without Naughty Dog.